Hello, and welcome to Scott's Odyssey. Today we're going to begin the ride along the Ghost Town Trail, a trail named after a bunch of towns that had ghosts. No, a trail named after a bunch of ghosts who lived in towns. No, that's still not right. A trail named because the towns themselves became ghosts. Yeah, that's it. See you in a minute.
Traffic on your route. In 3/4 of a mile, turn right on Old Indiana Road.
So, as you guys are well aware, I've been training for this run all week long. 30 miles out and 30 miles back. In my head while eating potato chips with some French onion dip that I made that was really good. Anyway, lots of training, mental training, so that I could bring you the story of the Ghost Town Trail. Let's get started right away, and let's get to the location of the first ghost town. This is the trailhead Let's get to the location of the first ghost town trail, Ghost Town. Here we go. Yep, that's it. It was right here, somewhere. Let me tell you the story. Welcome back. If you've watched my videos before, thank you for your patronage. And if you're new to Scott's Odyssey, welcome aboard. I know a lot of other YouTubers who do hiking and biking and trekking along this trail that are part of the Rails to Trails Conservancy. Rails to Trails Conservancy is a group of like-minded individuals who turn old abandoned railroads into trails with the idea of conserving history and heritage. When I see these other people doing the hike or riding the bike, I realize that something was lost in the translation of what the Conservancy intended, and those on the trails typically wander about aimlessly along a trail and take in nature and the opportunity to start at a point and end at a point. And with all due respect to them, kudos for getting out and taking in some nature along the way, even though most of you just complain about it on the internet forums and social media anyway. It is in my humble opinion that during this process, a lot of them are so focused on a start and an end point that they forget it's all about the journey along the way. And guess what? You are in nature, so you have no rights over the snakes, the birds, the bugs, the bears, or any of the flora and fauna that happens to be on the path. As a matter of fact, you should be grateful to have experienced the nature that has come back to these locations, especially if you know the history of what this looked like before now. So yeah, there are some occasional interpretive signs here and there along this trail that give a quick backstory to something most people are disinterested in because it's not their destination nor the start of their pre-formatted path. And again, in my humble opinion, all along these trails should be augmented reality destinations that can show you what it used to be and why it's so important that we are protecting this heritage and this history along these paths. And if you're afraid of bugs, wear repellent. And if you run into animals, don't provoke them, don't feed them, and beyond all else, do not try to get a selfie with them. And for God's sake, stop complaining about them. They live here. You don't. Okay, that's a disclaimer for this video series. Now, to the point of why we are here. Something that I love about going to all these different locations is my brain's way it analyzes what's here and overlays the history of what was here. Say, for example, if we come upon an old town, my brain has the ability to see what's there now and appreciate the remnants, but also allows me to put myself back in time and see what was here. And to me, it's as if I'm walking amongst the people and things that used to exist, almost like being in part of a movie. And that is something that I attempt to convey to all of you who watch these videos when I go out to a site. This is the Ghost Town Trail. It's called by this name due to the 8 towns that grew along the railroad, and one town that was along the railroad but was an old Welsh settlement long before the coal and iron industries actually came through the area. The length of the trail is about 46 miles. Some say 36, others claim 44 or 45.6, and one argues it's over 50 miles. It'd be nice if the counties, trail organizations, mapping companies, and the Conservancy would actually get on the same page and provide an accurate measurement, or at least all agree to be equally wrong about the distance for some semblance of normalcy. The origin of this area becoming a trail was based on an inventory of industrial heritage sites conducted back in 1987 by the America's Industrial Heritage Project and the National Park Services. Once it was identified as a viable site, both groups dropped the ball and left it for dead while focusing more on the Allegheny Portage Railroad National Historic Site, the Horseshoe Curve, and the East Broad Top Railroad and Coal Company. It wasn't until 1989 that the Southwestern Pennsylvania Heritage Preservation Commission was formed and picked up the project along with the Lauer Trail and the Allegheny Highlands Trail, which is now an addendum to the Great Allegheny Passage. To make a long bureaucratic tale short, lots of groups popped up like ticks and decided they all wanted to be a part of this initiative. and they pushed back and forth on personal agendas, and in the end created a situation where even the Southwestern Pennsylvania Heritage Preservation Commission ended up dying in 2008. But during all that time, they successfully gained the lands from the infamous Kovalchik Salvage Company, as well as donations from several railroad companies that were holding out on their easements in the hope something would spur the rail system back into action. That majority of this trail exists in the Blacklick Valley, where Black identified the color of coal in the water and Lick called out the run of the water through this valley. In the early days of the state, this valley was one that belonged to the Shawnee. It is believed, but not fully quantifiable, that the original paths used for travel and hunting by the natives essentially followed the same path that later became the colonial and settler hunting and trading path, which ultimately led to the path becoming the line for the railroad. No, there were no canals along this path. The rails that were here would offload and onload product, mostly coal and some iron in places, to wagons that would take the materials down to the canal, or at least over the inclines, which would then put the materials onto the canal for shipping to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. The area remained an untouched wild forest, allegedly due to it being too rocky for farming. But in the 1840s, the need of trees to burn for iron was pushing west very quickly, and even this location was not safe. So with all of that, let's get to the first town. The first place to look is right here, right where I'm standing. At the time, this was Pine Township, and in 1867 it became Buffington Township. But even that township has moved its borders almost 3 miles to the east, and this location is now found in Burrell Township. Oddly enough, Blacklick Township is found even further east than Buffington, and the difference between the Blacklick in Burrell versus the other Blacklick is a simple space between Black and Lick, somewhere near this location. And yes, I looked hard and cannot find any data on the exact location, was where the Wheatfield, later named Blacklick Furnace, was built by David Stewart in the latter part of 1846, making it the second furnace built along this trail. It was one of the more modern furnaces using the hot blast technology that had evolved over the previous decade. It stood here looking over this portion of the valley at 35 feet tall with an 8-foot Bosch. Yes, Bosch. That is what the portion of the furnace was called, at the top of the coal and the bottom of the ore, the place where it was hottest. The furnace was water powered from the Blacklick to run a large leather bellows. The site housed and was run by 80 men and boys with 46 mules and horses. There is a record that in 1849, the site produced 756 tons of pig iron that were shipped to Nineveh and Johnstown via the canal. In 1850, the furnace and rights to the land went up for sheriff's sale due to an unpaid tariff. The builder, David Stewart, went into a partnership with Dr. Peter Schoenberger to buy back the furnace. Stewart, being afraid of the tariff from back in 1846, sold his share of the furnace to George S. King in 1852. Schoenberger and King worked together, buying 2 more furnaces, one in Mill Creek and one at Ben's Creek near Johnstown. Neither of the men could agree on who they wanted to sell to in the market, and regardless of their disagreement, they built 2 more furnaces, bringing their total company to 5 total furnaces. King wanted a rolling mill for railroad iron, and Schoenberger wanted to make kettles for the New Orleans sugar market, which was in high demand at that time. They ended up with going the way of the rolling mill because their iron was too hard for casting kettles. In 1854, both King and Schoenberger became early investors to the Cambria Iron Company. In 1855, the furnace took on a lease with the Wood, Morell and Company, who ultimately worked the furnace until the last blast and blowout in 1859. The furnace sat cold until 40 years later when the Cambria Iron Company sold the furnace, coal, and timber rights to the Lackawanna Iron and Steel Company in 1899. The furnace was never started again after the blowout of 1859. The reasons for this is primarily because the cost for running pig iron on the Evansburg and Blacklick Railroad, which this trail is built upon, all the way down to the canals was just not cost effective. The hopes were that the Pennsylvania Railroad would come through the area, but that never happened. And essentially, the whole area died off overnight. Just under 2/10 of a mile from the trailhead, and just around the bend of the Blacklick Creek, we find something interesting in the water, an old dam and dam debris. I originally thought this might have been the original location of the Wheatfield Furnace Dam, but it's actually the remnants of the Josephine Furnace and Coke Company Dam, built back in 1905, eventually destroyed by a flood. Located just above the trail start, when you cross the creek, you will find Bell's Mills, the original location of a couple of grist mills in the 1780s through the 1830s, which then fell very silent during the furnace days because the combination of furnace and mines was polluting the water to a point where a mill could no longer function without damaging their product. From 1905 through 1937, it became Josephine Furnace and Coke Company, but this location was more commonly called Bell's Mill Coal Company, and we will save that story for when we talk about the hoodle bug. You guys are okay, go ahead. I won't bother you. You get all your babies, Mom? Good girl. Holy cow. I'm showing you eye level. That is one incredible stack of rails. They just pulled them all up off the trail and just stacked them nice and high, and nobody bothered to come and fetch them. look like the pipes that you would actually find inside the engine. So we are about 3/4 of a mile from the head of the trail, and we've already seen a lot of things. We've seen lots of trains on the side, or lots of cars. We've seen what looks like the inside of trains. We've seen tons of rail, and we've already seen 2 dam structures, and one thing that I was pretty sure was a bridge structure, because I don't see why you would put an icebreaker right before the dam, although that's a possibility as well. And there was nothing on the trail. It was just blank, a couple of people. But we now reach the point where we have these, one here, one on the other side. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. Oh, and there's an interpretive. Now, credit to the trail guys for putting the interpretive out here, but this is just telling you that between 1907 and 33, that there was the Indiana County Street Railway coming through. So it was electric car, it was trolley. And let's see, 700-foot bridge, 20-foot steel. Of course, the bridge is in here. It looks like a typical 2-part trolley bridge. Nothing special. All that's there, but that's it. It doesn't tell you why it's not here. It doesn't tell you how that connects anything to the remnants of the Ghost Town Trail, because, well, in all reality, it doesn't connect to anything on the Ghost Town Trail. It just happens to be here. So it would have come over and gone behind me and up this rock ledge hill. So, I mean, really, is that all the better these guys can do with their interpretives? Is that it? All those other things, and hey, look, here's 2 pillars to train a trolley that's not even that old. Guys, we could do so much better than this. So I'm coming up on the mile marker. It sounds like someone's using illegal quads, but found this little spoil tip. At least I'm assuming it's a spoil tip. It has all the signs of it, minus the being really tall. Could have just been a waste yard. Could have been a dump yard for coal. Could have been dump yard for metal. There's a lot of large hunks of iron sitting around. And yeah, this piece of iron is really hot because it's hot out here. And you know, there's Bigfoot footprints. You know, normal Pennsylvania stuff. Some kind of a pipe over there. And this is not listed in any of the documentation. What was it, people? Anybody? 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 Bueller? Yeah, you see, that's the problem. So it's along the trail, and you want to invite people out to a trail and learn about history and heritage. And all we've learned about is a stupid trolley that took people up the Bells Hills. And we've already seen 5,000 times more of that along the way. I'm going to show you another one here just in a moment, right across the road. So what was it? Anybody? Let's go look what's across the road. Okay, so came across the road, and first and foremost, there is a raised bed, but it's a shallow raised bed. I don't know what he's doing, but he comes over and past the mountain laurel to a building. It's not a very old building. It's not very new either. And it's full of bullet holes because, you know, Pennsylvania. Alright, so the raised bed looks like it was holding a pipe. There's some spout out holes at the bottom. We are close to a runoff. So I wonder if it was some sort of a pump house. Let's go take a look. Without falling. Without falling would be good. Alright, this ground is wet. Got some pancakes coming up. Alrighty. What do we have here? This is interesting. Let's get a little higher. Sorry, Mr. Spider. Sorry, other Mr. Spider. Alrighty. So, this pipe is 90 degrees to the other pipe, and he goes looking like he goes all the way down to the creek, or the creek, depending on how you say it. Looks like he's been broken for a long time too. Alright, so I think we're looking at a pump house. Let's go widescreen. Alright, there we go. That way you can capture it a little bit better. Yeah, water department pump house. Getting water into the town. I don't know if they were doing it for fire hydrants or for actual drinking water. Who knows? I would personally wouldn't care to have this particular water going to my water department, even for cleaning. It's not exactly easy to clean, it's expensive to clean, and probably not as safe as you would like it to be. So here we are, just before mile 3. I needed to stop because my alarm went off telling me that we got a big thunderstorm heading this way and I need to go 3 miles back. I can't make it to the next town on this particular run. It's 6.5 miles. You've seen all the video footage I could give you of the first section, mile 1 and mile 2. There were a lot of things to see. There are deer everywhere, which brings us to the condition of this trail. It's a really nice trail, but even on a mountain bike, if you try to stop when you're moving a little quickly, you're not going to stop quickly. It's very, very, very loose. And if you try to go off to the sides of the trail, the gravel that's on the sides of the trail is drainage gravel, and it's so big that it'll turn your wheel on you and you'll fall, and there's not a lot of room. If you fall, you're going down in the ditches on both sides, which is kind of sad. But it's a nice trail overall. It is beautiful out here. The forests are beautiful. The rock formations are beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. Not a fan of the orange of the Blacklick, but that'll go away in another, I don't know, 200-300 years. If you like videos about trails, check out this one from last week if you didn't see it yet. It was a test run on the Lauer Trail, and I'm still waiting on collecting information for that. I'm not getting a lot of responses, so I'm going to have to dig a little harder. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.